All right, so we have one of the two co-founders of Modus Create Online. Hello, Jay.
Good day, sir. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, thank you.
How are things at Modus HQ today?
They're actually quite quiet. They're pretty quiet. Yeah, I have our COO, Cheryl, who's on vacation. I have Pat in... where is he? Here. He just went to Germany.
Awesome. So I can imagine it's really quiet.
Yeah. What's funny is that we have this office, and we set up. This is our very first time we set up hoteling, that is temporary seating space. So kind of first come first serve. You come in, choose a spot, work. It's quite collaborative, and out of the 5 or 6 people we have on delivery staff who work at the company within the Washington D.C. area, only a few of them actually come in once or twice a week. Most of the folks actually just work from home.
So you're saying is, if I'm running late to work, then I have to sit in the kitchen.
If this place is full, yeah, you'll have to sit in the kitchen, absolutely. And we reserved some meeting space in the bathroom too. It's great.
But this is what? This is 5th or 6th office at Modus, right?
This is, I want to say 5th office. Yeah, our very first office was very much like a closet. We could fit 2 desks. And so I actually have 1 or 2 photos of that office, and I think they may be the only 2 photos that exist of that place. And we had 2 desks, but we were able to fit myself, Pat. At that point, we had a third co-founder who is no longer with the company, and we just kind of crammed ourselves in that closet office.
And that didn't even take long. I remember my first trip to the HQ was around November of the first year, and Modus was founded in March.
That's correct, yeah.
So March, November, and there was already like office number 2, right?
Yeah, we sublet so using Pat's network, we were able to lease a space in a much bigger office, and we ended up kind of customizing a cube farm. And so instead of making just having a bunch of cubes how they originally organized it, we just basically cut out a bunch of sections, and so that made it a little bit more Modus-esque. But yeah, that place, actually, strangely enough, it's not far from here. It's a good maybe 1.5 miles, good 3-minute drive depending on traffic. And we have some interesting memories about that place as well.
Well, it was a quick turnover, to be honest, for a startup, really quick.
Yeah, and so fun fact, Northern Virginia, when we founded the company, had an earthquake. And we experienced, or at least we weren't at the office, but we were at the closet office prior to this other one. But we were at that closet office. And the fun fact is that when Pat went to that building where we had that closet office, he noticed a bunch of cracks in the foundation, not the foundation, but the cement and the bricks and so forth that did not exist prior to that earthquake.
Oh, okay. So it's run for your life, kind of.
It was pretty bad for the area because we don't normally get earthquakes. Yes.
Just kidding. All right. So now that we are taking the road to history and memory lane, and how can you compare Modus, say 5 years ago? That's what, 2019, 2014.
Yeah.
How can you compare Modus 2014 versus Modus now?
Oh boy, it's very much a night and day difference. We were probably at most 20 folks at the time back in 2014. 2014, that was probably 2 years after we did our Tough Modus event, which is our very first team event.
Tough Modus! Tough Modus! Tough Modus! Tough Modus!
Which happened to be a Tough Mudder, a 11-mile endurance event. Back in 2014, we were nearing the end of we had a 2,500 square foot space. We were nearing the end of that lease. We, had some interesting turnover. We had hired some salespeople, but the interesting bit is like the core culture that we have today very much is like we had in 2014. And I think that's what's special about Modus's story. When we started to grow, right? So back in 2017, when we went from Q3 2017, we went from about 75 people to 150. It was a huge expansion. A lot of folks were concerned that while we were growing, we'd lose our core culture. And, I feel like we, had to evolve, but we didn't lose our culture itself. So if you want to talk about, the differences, I think, we definitely have more processes in place because we need to do that. But, being an engineering-led company that has multiple contributors from different areas, different countries, all centered around technology and using, the core values that Modus has is huge.
How much of those core values they're saying are shared between Modus internal culture and the overall global open source community culture? How can you compare the two?
I would say that they're actually quite synonymous. And Pat always says that Modus was designed, the organization design was around open source teams. And what that basically means is that we have people contributing from anywhere in the world and given the creative freedom to do so. So if we think about like core open source codes of conduct, right? You want people who, and everybody says this, they have integrity, right? We expand upon that and we add things like we want people in the company who are always learning, who are always seeking better challenges, who are not comfortable with the status quo. We want individuals who are not only always learning, but want to seek mastery of their tradecraft, want to also share what they've learned and give back to communities. And that's part of where open source, really shines and kind of parallels Modus's culture altogether. I think it's important when people come to work at the company or even visit, for example, we had interns this past summer, that they understand that we are at a team. And so I always tell folks, like, you leave your ego at the door. And I'm not one that has a ton of metaphors, but to me, that's super important. Because if you are a highly collaborative team, then you need to be open, you need to be humble to recognize that you may do something, you may contribute something to a project, and it may work, but it may not be the best way. And so another team member may look at your code and say, oh, this is awesome, but if you do these 5 things, your code would be much faster. Or, the worst case scenario is like, dude, that's the worst pattern you could have done. And, that's okay. It may be working, but if you were to make these changes, then you would follow best practices.
Yeah, that's the part that I love. That's the part that I signed up for. And being around all these people that I always looked up to and being on a team with all these people, that made me not just happy, but that made me more successful. And I always look to grow into that culture so that I can eventually give back. And I love giving back, but I also love receiving, right? And that's the beauty that I see. It doesn't just mean that I have to learn from the experienced developers. I love that I can learn from, I want to say, younger developers. Maybe, I want to say they call themselves junior, but it's the wit and the intelligence that everyone has that you can always learn from, right? And that respect is always, in my mind, phenomenal. A really phenomenal asset to everyone's life as, bringing value, contributing value, not just to a project, to an iteration, but also to other humans, right? Because it's not just contributors, it's hearts.
Yes, I completely agree. And, a lot of companies organize their culture around the concept of perks at the office, maybe swag, maybe, a couple of sayings. Like I know that there's a company that I'm aware of that has like 23 like core values, and they list it in a booklet, and it's like this kind of accordion thing, and they're so regimented about making sure that every meeting starts with the announcement of one thing, and the person takes about 30 seconds, talks about the thing of the week and what it means to them. And it's that would never work at Modus, because we know from the get-go that we're all here together. And the concept of like the ivory tower, like Pat and I have never had that. Now sometimes we have to do things like we have to leverage our authority to move things forward. There might be a gridlock or so forth, but I could tell you that when I have done deep dives on projects, I've sat next to developers and said, hey, look, let's debug this together. Oh, you haven't seen this tool? Let's look at this tool together. All right. So that's me being a teacher and being a leader. Now, there's also the opportunity to be a follower. Recently, when we were building the RGB screen project, where we took a bunch of Raspberry Pis and kind of organized them in a matrix of matrices. Are we going to see blue smoke? I don't know.
I don't know.
Hashtag blame Lucas. Mastercard. Okay. Let me do this right. This team rocks. I had an opportunity to learn from one of our principal architect, Richard. And he, thankfully to me, was able to be able to show me some things in Bash that I had not known. And again, I could have, if I had the ivory tower approach, I'd be like, hey, well, I'm the co-founder, then I'm the smartest guy or whatever. And no, that doesn't jive with Modus culture. It doesn't matter what your title is. You're always a student, and if someone knows something more, be open to learning. So I was very grateful. I'm like pointing to where he normally sits. I'm so grateful that he took the opportunity to teach me these things.
It's that human interaction that you just said, and I'm gonna emphasize on human interaction. It is just phenomenal. We're working with people, right? So occasionally we're gonna feel that we need to make things right. Maybe someone is not able to, let's say, write as much code as maybe I feel I can. And then I remember this was an aha moment to me, and honestly, I want to say it's a new thing to my culture, my natural culture. Is I had a problem with a teammate. Everybody has a problem with teammates, right? And a person who was managing the team said, you know what? You better talk to that person honestly and talk about your feelings and why, and tell them how you feel, how that's impacting the project and the company and whatever, the team, and try to work it out. So I reached out to the gentleman and I said, hey, honestly, I hate to say this, but honestly, I feel that there is opportunity for improvement, and I want to learn how I can help you improve. It took a lot of gut for me to say that, but I love the opportunity, and I feel that the team was much stronger after that. We found a way for everyone to be successful. We found a way to appreciate each other's needs and situations, if you will. And that kind of human interaction and that kind of aha moment is just one of many that I had at Modus. And that's something I cherish. It kind of goes along the lines with what you just said.
Yeah, that to me is invaluable. And if you want to talk about the difference between 2014 and 2019, I feel like I've personally grown, and this is where the concept of Modus as a platform to me is just like, I hold that like near and dear to my heart. And every opportunity I have to either give back to other individuals in and out of Modus, I do, or to invest in the company so that people can learn, I definitely look to do that. When you talk about being open to this type of feedback, that's one of those things that I think work very well for Pat and I. Even though we've been in business for almost 9 years now, and one of the first thing that people ask when they hear our story, they say, how the hell is it that you two guys have been able to run a company that has kind of seen its ups and downs, but not kill each other?
You've been using my Robert Goulet party wig as a coffee filter again, haven't you?
And it's that concept of being humble, of having a bit of humility, where I might be stronger in a certain area, or I might see something that might be either unseen or not recognized by him, or he might actually have a perspective on a sales opportunity that I might not have. And being open to that feedback and being able to help each other grow is super, super important.
There. You're not stupid.
And this is where, like, you know, again, I have to kind of riff on this ivory tower bit, because, you know, if he needs to, he will work on a slide deck for a sales opportunity. You know, one could say, well, you know, a 200-person company, why is a co-founder working on a slide deck? He should have people already to do that. Well, the truth is, sometimes you just got to get your, you know, get dirt on your pants, and, you know, and get the job done.
And I've seen you grow from adapt, or from a developer in the community. And I'll never forget reaching out to you and say, hey Jay, we connected on Skype. Hey, why don't you come over for a conference? And you're like, yes. It's not like, hey, let me think about that. No, yes. And from that time, those times back to now, or fast forward to now, now you're a businessman. You're running a business. So that was a lot of learning from you.
Yeah, and yeah, I was going to say, this is something that, you know, I remember when, oh geez, so many thoughts are flooding to my head. I remember when we were looking to found the company, there was a gentleman who, to me, was somewhat of a mentor to me. And I looked up to him. He's a CTO of a company that I'd worked for. And, you know, he said, Jay, you know, one of the things that you got to think about is, if you're going to be, and at that time, the titles that Pat and I had were CEO, CTO, kind of following the typical industrial model. He said, you know, when you look to found this company, you have to recognize that, you know, you're not going to, at some point, you're not going to be the guy doing all the coding and all that stuff. And, you know, I said, okay. And to be honest, one of the things that I hear often from CTOs is that they wish they were more technically focused, right? And this is where I love Modus as that professional platform. You know, I've been fortunate to have all types of opportunities to learn about executing a business. And, you know, this is where I'm grateful to my relationship with Pat, newly found relationship with Cheryl, our COO. You know, I've learned so much over the past, 4 years. It's been quite incredible. And some of them are not necessarily like the traditional business running, lessons. You know, some of them are actually core foundational ways to view things. So if we look at your example where you were butting heads with a team member, one of the things that comes to mind from my lessons of the past is, you know, always assume that intentions are good, right? And the reason I think about this is because the truth is, no one joins your team to be a jerk and mess things up, right? So if they made a mistake, or if you guys are not, or you individuals are not seeing eye to eye, that's not an intent thing, right? That's either a process thing, a communication thing, whatever. So when I think about recognizing, or at least assuming that intent is good, then that ratchets down the intensity for me. Literally, I don't get upset. I say, okay, well, if this person's intent was good, then, you know, my mind goes to what things could have led this person down that path to make the decisions or to execute these things, right? So it's that one example really resonates with me when I think about professional growth. And, you know, there's other things obviously around finance and, you know, sales and marketing, all this other stuff, but I don't want to bore people with that stuff.
Yeah, going back to your past, you have a really rich background. A lot of things went on in your life. You love DJing. You were in the military. You became a developer, but maybe you don't have a proper official documentation, education. Now, how has your background impacted Modus?
Tremendously. So, without going through all of my background, yes, I don't have a traditional education, and from an engineering perspective, a computer science perspective, it has held me back. I know this more now than ever. However, I definitely know more now about computer science than I did, you know, even a year ago, which is phenomenal. The first core thing is that I was given an opportunity when I was 14. Someone gave me a computer, and that kind of allowed me to spark a curiosity in me. Like I was always a nerd. I was into video games, but I really didn't have access to computers that were like PCs. Like I had a Mattel Aquarius, which is an 8-bit piece of crap. But put that aside, like this one individual, kind of was, it was a single act of kindness that was huge for me. Now, I will say this. He didn't just give me a machine, like he actually brought me under his wing for a short period of time while I was living in California. So he took me to work one day. So I was able to go to see what a network, a data center looks like. I helped him do telephone and network wiring. I had an opportunity to see what computers who were networked, would do and so forth. He sat me down and, showed me things like some of his basic programming because I wanted to learn basic. He did some crazy mathematical things where he was drawing, to me, they were crazy at the time, drawing sine waves, drawing ellipses, doing funny things. And, my time with this individual was short, but that short period of time and his actions were so impactful that they forever, set the trajectory for me. Now, at that time when I was 14, I was in 10th grade. I was away from my mom, living with my dad, and I had failed 10th grade. And a lot of people don't know this. Like, I was on a trajectory where it was not good for me.
No, sir, I didn't like it.
And I had to make a decision. Either I go back with my mom and do summer school and bust my butt and follow this guy's path, which, by the way, he was in the Navy. Okay, so he kind of told me his story. Either I go down that path and kind of, grow up, or I go down the fun route, which is dropping out of school, getting into drugs potentially, or getting someone pregnant. Like, the future did not look awesome for me. So I did make that decision back when I was in 10th grade to go back with my mom. I got straight A's through 10th grade, through 11th and 12th, and eventually went to the Air Force, which kind of, moved my my professional trajectory into the positive. And so you ask about how this impacts Modus. Well, this one guy's kindness, I didn't really know him that well. He was a friend of my, he was a friend of, my dad's friend's friend, right? So it was like a distant connection, but he saw something in me. I don't know what it was, dude. He saw something in me. And so from there, I realized, like, I can't take this one gift and kind of hold it to myself, right? And this is this one core concept of always giving back. When it came time, when I recognized that I was smart enough to give stuff back in the Sencha community, I started to do so. Blog posts, forum posts, screencasts. If anyone, who followed me back in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, like, I did screencasts when I had converted my son's bedroom into a recording studio. So I actually had like yellow at the top and a baby border in the middle and like light blue on the bottom. And I would do screencasts, anywhere I could to give back. And, that led me to meeting you. It led me to meeting Pat and so many other individuals. So that's how it impacts Modus. Is like, that's one of the core values that literally is like, it's almost like in my DNA.
It's not you tell the story, and it's amazing. It's an amazing story. I can totally connect a few dots. And one of the things I really liked recently is how you contributed back to the local community with children and teaching them some of the values of life and work and engineering. And we even had some work with us on phenomenal projects, right? And everyone I met, I had the chance to meet. They were phenomenal individuals, young individuals who were able to grow, both, I want to say, pre-professionally and as humans. I saw huge changes, huge differences in just a month or two of internship. That was amazing. I love that you did that.
That was a good time, and I gotta say, like, I traveled most of it, but I was proud of the team for rallying and helping make that possible. We had an individual who is now in the 11th grade. Okay, so this is a minor. This is our very first time interning a high schooler. This individual is he has an amazing career ahead of him. And, I told him, I said, on the side, I said, hey man, if you want to skip school, this is, in 4 years, this is going to be better than any computer science education thing. But I told him, I was like, I'll happily talk to your dad, but no, seriously, I'm not saying quit your plans, but seriously, like, if you want to start, if you don't have, cash for school, or if you don't have plans for school, you have a job here. He's that good. And it's not just about his engineering prowess. It is about his he has the core values that Modus has, and he reminded me very much of myself. We actually had an individual who is neurodiverse. So this individual, requires a little bit of different thinking, and I mean a little bit. But this, it's at the point where we're going to be bringing this person on permanently on a part-time basis. He's, we recognize that this concept of the neurodiverse workforce is, as an untapped talent pool, is huge. But that, being able to not only help this individual and provide an opportunity for him to make a contribution in this world, but also telling his story so that others can follow in Modus's footsteps is huge. It's huge. And this thing we did this past summer wasn't the first time. We've had interns in the past. I'm sure if you remember back around the 2014 era, 2013 era, we had some interns who were designers. We had interns who eventually became full-time employees, and like the whole I don't know if you remember what was the video campaign? Help Andrew be awesome, right? So we hired a young man from George Mason University who was a video game design major.
What's going on, man?
And within a 2.5-3 year time frame, he ended up using Modus as a platform to become a front-end engineer. Something that he couldn't do at school.
Yeah, I remember when he recorded that video of him dancing to a song with a selfie stick recording, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, "Staying Alive" by the Bee Gees. Yes, that was awesome.
Beautiful. So, hey Jay. Take a deep breath. I have a special question for you.
Go for it.
Actually, it's not one question. I'm gonna ask you how Modus has changed you in a few areas, but you have 3 seconds to start your answer. It's gotta be quick, okay?
Okay.
Just think quickly, all right?
Yep.
How has Modus changed the way you work out?
The way I work out. Okay. So the first thing that comes to mind is the concept of me being healthy for Modus is hyper important. So most people think that if you're taking time for yourself, you're selfish. I believe it's different. I learned differently. That's selfless. So in other words, if I'm not healthy, I can't be there for my wife and children. I can't be there for Modus.
Awesome. Okay, great answer. Jay, how has Modus changed the way you engage in conversations?
It has allowed me to be more thoughtful, to be honest, and leverage a lot more experience. Today I'm actually getting close to being 41 years of age. I was in my early 30s back then, and I thought I knew a lot, and I'm a lot more humble today.
Awesome. How has Modus changed the way you shop online?
That's a great question. I can tell you that my appetite for quality of products has gone up. I definitely have a lower tolerance for bad user experience. So when you go to a website and it has an enter website button, that's just silly. I'm sorry, I just gotta say it. 2019, that's just stupid. And if it's a mobile site and it has quirky issues like you scroll up and down, but that also scrolls left and right as you're scrolling up and down, sorry, dude, I'm not gonna be a happy guy.
I hear you. Like carousels, like you swipe left and right and it goes up and down.
Yep.
Hey, I remember like we did so many awesome e-tail products and some of the best in the world really. And having learned to accept that kind of quality, it becomes really hard. Look for phenomenal, top-notch performance. Look for Actually, I even noticed some of the AI things that they build into shopping experience. I definitely noticed that, and how they impact, I didn't want to say manipulate, impact your choices. Totally awesome. Hey, one more question, okay? How has Modus impacted the way you drink coffee?
Oh, definitely. I would say I'm a cold brew drinker. Here I am, cold brew, iced coffee. I am not a snob, but I am definitely more educated. I know how long to brew it, the type of grounds, and now thanks to you, the right paper filters. I have to have the paper filter.
Ha! Chemex. Oh no,
Yes.
I love those. Yeah, awesome. Hey Jay, this has been so much fun.
Likewise, dude. I appreciate you taking the time to connect with me on these types of questions. I very rarely have an opportunity to talk about these things.
And unfortunately, there is so much you have to share. But that leads me to one final thing that I would love to learn from you.
Let's do it.
Jay, what makes your heart sing?
What makes my heart sing? S-I-N-G or sink?
Sing, like happy.
Oh, I would say it's learning and learning and sharing together. Yeah, there are lots of people who will say, who ask me, what is your end goal? And I would say, what do you mean? And say, well, if Modus is something that you're focused on, what's your end goal in terms of dollars? And I could never answer that question. That's just, as if like the only purpose to build a company is to sell it. Now, for some individuals, that's fine. But for me, it's not. I feel like I'm a qualified individual. I could find work wherever. However, I always found that Modus was a place for me to learn, and the spectrum of things that I can learn are absolutely immense, to the point where sometimes I'm dreaming about the things that I've learned the day prior. So you want to talk about what makes my heart sing? It's definitely learning, sharing what I've learned, and obviously collaborating with the greater global team.
Phenomenal. Hey Jay, high five!
High five!
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Cheers.
Cheers.